Good evening, it's Doc for Ready Set Crypto Premium Newsletter for Wednesday, June 13th, looking at Bitcoin. Again, I want to keep looking at the same things here to see if we can identify some bottoming signals. Now, price is coming down to the recent lows that we had in February, and this is on the Bitstamp exchange. So these are going to be slightly different depending on which exchange that we go to. So the lows back here in February was 59.20. And in a minute, I'll look at a different exchange and we'll see if we have a different number down there. But right now, this is the number that I care about, 59.20. So far, the low for today, and there's about 2 hours left. The low is 61.20. So a couple hundred points away from that low. And the price continues driving lower. We've broken out through the bottom of that wedge. I want to see whether the price is going to have any reaction or feel compelled to go all the way down and retest the February lows. Looks like a very high probability at this point. And right now, again, we're down about 4% with about 2 hours left in the trading day. Now, same studies that I brought up the other day. We're starting to see positive divergence here. This is a Class A positive divergence for the MACDs. We have a lower low, and we have so far a higher low on the MACDs. Now, this is not completed yet. Again, price rules. Price is king. If price continues lower, then eventually the MACD will print a lower low. But for right now, this is showing that it's running out of momentum. Again, something like this is just a leading signal. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a piece of evidence that says, hey, in the past when we've seen these types of divergences, right? So this is something I did the other day. When we've seen these types of divergences where we have lower lows along in the price and we have higher lows along here, eventually we do see some type of positive reaction. Okay, same thing here. We have positive divergence on lower lows. We had that nice bounce into April. Seems like so long ago. Okay, so we are starting to see potential divergences here. Does it mean anything? No, the price overrides everything as long as the price continues going lower. So in other words, what I'm not going to say is if the price continues lower, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it and say, wait a minute, we had positive divergence. A secondary signal like divergence is only a leading indicator, is only just a piece of evidence. That is it. Now, this is interesting. This is the RSI. And I talked about the RSI the other day, and I said, look, we've only had a signal this low, and finally, we did actually break below 30 today. So definitely, we're going to close below 30 today. Unless we see a dramatic reversal in the next 2 hours here, we are going to see the RSI close below 30. Again, does that mean anything? It increases the probabilities that we'll see a short-term low in the near future. That's all it means. It's not, we're not predicting the future. We're just saying that there's an increased probability of a short-term low in the future. Is that a tradable bottom? Well, tradable bottoms will come when we start to see this on even a 4-hour chart, right? So even a 4-hour chart, when we start to see something like this, this is where we will have our definitive signal. So right now we had that flag that we talked about the other day, lower highs, lower lows. So once the 4-hour chart starts doing something like this, higher lows, higher highs, then we have potentially our reversal. Price will trump everything else, right? Price is the most important signal that you can possibly learn when it comes to charting. Okay, one more study that I want to look at, which is the CHOP and the Bollingers. And there we go. We have a magic signal, another magic signal. So we're starting to see more confluence now. Confluence is where you can think of it almost like one signal on top of another signal on top of another signal on top of another signal, where all of a sudden the addition of all those signals tends to create a stronger signal. And so we've already talked about the RSI. The RSI is showing a potential bottoming signal because it's below 30, and we rarely ever get there. That's one signal. We also have exhaustion on the CHOP index. So we're below 38, meaning that this is an extremely linear move that we're seeing and linearity is what the chop index is going to show us. So we have a very linear move, very straight move off of this lower high into exhaustion. And very frankly, this is the deepest exhaustion signal that we have seen so far this year. We don't have any other downside exhaustion signals that have gone this low. So that's another good sign. Now, when we go out to the weekly chart, we're not going to quite see the same thing. Here we got a ton of energy. And this, on the weekly chart basis, is just starting to scratch the surface of a real trend. So we're not going to get any help from that one. But also we can see that if we zoom in here, we can see that the price is well below the Bollinger Bands. So the Bollinger Bands, we had a nice little squeeze setting up over here. The squeeze set up at the same time we talked about this high energy signal on the chop index. And I was saying, uh-oh, we got a big signal coming. Got a big movement coming. Which way is it going to go? Watch the price to let you know which way it's going to go. So this is where we put everything together, right? Again, we are not predicting the future. We're just setting ourselves up with a context with which we can make decisions. So all these signals are great, but probably nothing's going to happen until the price gets down here to 59-ish something, 5,900-ish. Okay, so we can look up here, and if we go into BTC, so we have a number of BTCs up here, right? So BTC USD, BTC USD, Bitcoin dollar. Let's look at the Bitfinex signal for that. So remember, the low over here was 59.20, and that's on Bitstamp. So let's compare that versus Bitfinex. Okay, so we got to go all the way down here, and there's the Bitfinex signal. And let's pull this up, and the low for that guy was actually 6,000. Big difference, right? This is where crypto's got to grow up, because we have different exchanges and the price trades differently on different exchanges. This is going to be an arbitrage opportunity of a lifetime for somebody that can figure this out. The problem is how long it takes the transactions. So in the equities world, these types of arbitrage transactions take place in milliseconds, because all exchanges pretty much run at the same price so that they can service different areas of the world. If they get out of whack with each other, there's an arbitrage opportunity. But in Bitcoin right now, somebody can step into that space and perhaps make some money in there. But for right now, it just takes a while for these transactions to execute into the blockchain, to pass across the blockchain. So this is why we have different values. So 6,000 versus 5,920, that's a pretty big difference. Before I move on to the next point, what I've always enjoyed about TradingView, and the more I use this platform, the more I really enjoy it. I've used a lot of different platforms before in the past, like TradeStation, and I've used QCharts, and I've used Thinkorswim, and I've used NinjaTrader. I mean, I've used just about everything that's out there commercially available. And TradingView is actually a really good platform. And you get a lot of value in the crypto space right now for TradingView for actually a fairly reasonable cost. Not only for free only gives you so many tools, but it's still really good for you to kick the tires on it. But the one thing I've always enjoyed is these little news blurbs that come up here. And I just think this one is hilarious. So the founder of quite possibly the worst email service out there is criticizing the valuation of business models of cryptocurrency. If you want an example of irony, irony will pop up in this little news window on a regular basis. Okay, finishing up today's report, I have been pounding on my fiat broker. This is my equities broker here, TD Ameritrade, for Bitcoin futures permissions. And finally, they came through. So now I can trade Bitcoin futures. Hallelujah. The thing that I really want this for is to be able to play the downside. As I've said many, many times before, I don't believe that naked shorting a coin is a very wise thing to do, just for many, many reasons. It's just very complicated, and you have unlimited upside risk. And you guys have all seen the short squeezes that we've seen in this market, and it's just, I just don't think it's a good idea to be setting up naked short positions. But these futures are actually really, really good. They serve the purpose very well. So just to give you an example, for something here. So we had this move today that happened. This is Eastern time around noon today. It went from Bitcoin 6,400 down to 6,200. 6,400 to 6,200, and that took approximately 10 minutes. Okay, so a 10-minute move. And the price went on this ladder from 6,400 down here to about 6,200. So from top to bottom on this ladder. Well, if you consider that each one of these minimum tick sizes, each one of these ticks on the ladder is worth $5. Then going from 6,400 to 6,300 means that it went through 20 ticks times $5, so it's a $100 move. And then continuing on to 6,200 was another $100 move. So the price moving down here in about 10 minutes, this is about a $200 move. That's what we're looking for. Now we can use some really simple technical analysis for this. In a downtrend, we're going to see these flags because rising patterns break to the downside. Rising patterns break to the downside. Rising patterns break to the downside. Now, what we'll also see is that descending patterns break to the upside. So I've got this orange line here. If it starts to break to the upside, we might have our quick little short covering. This is also really good here where we're seeing this sort of waterfall decline here. I would eventually see a really strong capitulation move. Now, I don't know whether we're going to see it this week or whether, perhaps it's a few months down the road, but eventually the capitulation move that we will see in Bitcoin and most other assets will be stunning. And fortunes will be made and lost on that move alone. So again, guys, if you're interested in playing the downside, I would do it through the XBT futures. If you can get them through your broker, if you have permission to trade them, I believe this is the way to handle the downside. This is going to be the safest way to do this. Again, if you don't have access to something like a BitMEX or a Deribit or one of the other derivatives exchanges, which is going to be based on country by country as to whether or not you're legally allowed to trade that. All right, guys, that is it for tonight's report. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.